Blog Talk Radio.
Okay, well, it appears that we're on Open Money, and but I'm waiting for Michael to call so that we can start this here show together and patch Alan in. I don't see Michael, and what I'm thinking is maybe we ought to start this all over again, because something has obviously gone wrong, and there's no point me just babbling on about nothing for the remaining time. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut the show. Unless I hear from Michael momentarily, I'm cutting the show and then rescheduling for 11. Okay, so this show is going to be back up at 11. Don't know if we're going to have an hour, but we'll do something then. All right? So, well, I'm in. Okay. Arnie, we're up. Well, this is an abbreviated and somewhat concatenated version of Blog Talk Radio's Open Money chat line. Due to technical difficulties, merely social engineering, we failed to make the proper connections first up, but we're here now, and we are on air, and I'm waiting for other people to join in. I'm going to send a note to Alan to say, please join whenever you like. And I'm just still waiting for Arnie. So, here I am. Here is nobody else. And I don't know where Ernie went. This is definitely the least intelligible broadcast we've done so far. And it's likely to stay that way for another few minutes while I motor around. Yeah, Ernie, can you come online? The show is running. We've got 43 minutes left, and now our man is on, so come on. Okay. You can't? Hello, Alan. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good. Well, that's good. Well, my profound apologies for this confusion. It seemed like we weren't off air. We were on air, but without a host and without anybody participating. But we're now here, and probably will be joined by Ernie in a couple of minutes. But failing that, we have 40 minutes to chat about open money, current developments, the world as you have seen it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on the show here.
Well, quite a show to be on, Alan. Quite a show to be on. And thank you for the work that you did with us in Seattle last week. By way of
context for anybody who's listening to this later, Alan Rosenblith is our guest today. He's a film producer out of Portland, Oregon. And last week we met in Seattle for a day's intensive activity involving cameras and the open money concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we're here today to discuss what comes out of that. What have you discovered, and where do you want to go next? Those are the questions.
Well,
so take it away, Alan. I'll make it your show today. Consider me the resident expert who will answer all your questions.
Okay. Well, maybe a good place to start is to kind of, I think I was having a little bit of a mental block for a while on this whole open money concept and what it was really about and that kind of thing. So maybe it would be helpful for me to kind of repeat back to you what I was able to glean from our work together, and then you can, confirm or deny.
Yes. That's the way to go.
So, at least as I'm perceiving it, it seems like open money is less a currency design itself and more a tool for enabling communications around and networking around various other currency protocols. And it basically is it seems like a protocol for kind of in the same way that email is an internet protocol or FTP is an internet protocol, kind of in that level.
Yes, you've got it there. It's not as specific and technical at the level of a TCP/IP protocol, the numbers and dots and all that. Not quite, but it sits in the same relationship. That the internet is what's called a dumb network with smart edges. That is, you try and keep the network as a clear transport that enables the users to do with it what they choose. Yeah. And this is exactly what we're aiming at with the open money platform, is to provide any user with a simply accessible model that allows them to have whatever currencies they think they want.
Yeah, and and another point to that was it doesn't seem to me, I guess that when I at first heard it, I was like, oh, is this going to, sort of supersede existing currency efforts? And then it sort of seemed like, well, no, this is actually going to help, bring those efforts kind of up in stature and allow them to kind of be perceived by more members in the community. Is that correct as well?
That is exactly it. Yeah. Certainly no takeaway, no conflict, no impediment to existing initiatives or planned initiatives. More an opportunity to integrate and make the accessibility in one space to one community also enable us to have accessibility to others, should we choose them.
Yeah, and I think that's a real important piece because, I've been working on this project, community currency project here in Portland for a while now, and, I think it's a real important piece to see that, different people are going to have different entry points to the open money protocol. And, one can think of it, I guess the way I've kind of been thinking about it is, okay, well, let's say, it's back in the late 80s and email was kind of just beginning to percolate out. One could have a business which provided email for its employees. Now, that wouldn't necessarily change what the business was about, but it would give the employees a way to communicate with each other in an efficient manner. And similarly, it would also enable, over time, the business to communicate more efficiently with other businesses. So,
exactly. A two-stage process, really. And community currencies have gone through the first, and now we're about to go to the second. There's been, over the last 25 years in particular, but not just that time, it goes back decades, and even centuries, there have been community currencies. But they have all been, as it were, inside one business, the employees emailing to each other. It's equivalent to that.
Yeah.
And that's been very frustrating, very limiting. And what we've done with the open money project is to, in a way, grasp the nettle, to go to the core of the issue, right to the root of the matter, and it enables all these possibilities without getting in the way of any of them.
Yeah.
And that's it's raised a certain amount of concern, because I don't think that has been widely appreciated. Many people have just thought this is just another competitive or exclusive or my way rather than that way package. But actually what we're trying to say is the right and the opportunity to create community currencies is essentially universal. We can make it technically feasible as well. And then we can let people live their lives the way they want to do so.
Well, yeah, the way I've been kind of thinking about it in terms of what we're planning here in Portland is that this community currency initiative would be open money compatible, that it could serve as some kind of, the people who are part of this particular trading circle, the one here in Portland, would get access to the open money network, as sort of part of the package, so to speak. And I think that really, what we're looking at doing here is really kind of on the bioregional level. And one thing that I've been really thinking about is, well, there's different sets of rules that are appropriate for different levels of interaction between people. And I think that's really one of the things that makes open money so interesting to me, is that, it's not just a set of rules that, okay, now we have to play this game. It's that, different networks, there's going to be different things that are appropriate for different networks depending on what the goal of the trading network is and what the, level of anonymity, what its size is, all these things.
Absolutely. So, unit of measure, terms of contract, who is admitted to this network and who is not. We look at it like the deck of cards, 52 cards, 4 suits. It's a simple package. How many games of cards have been invented using those 52 cards?
Exactly.
And how many could be? And to go out there and say, no, this is the deck, you must play this game, would be totally absurd. So let's put it this way. We're laying the cards on the table. We're giving everybody the cards and letting them play their games. Yeah.
And I think that's it. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but it also seems like it could be a powerful platform for sharing design ideas. So if, somebody comes up with a clever new game and, that could possibly propagate to other areas of the world pretty quickly if that game is, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, Texas Hold'em poker is well known, whereas the game of Niggle, you've probably never heard of it.
I don't think I've heard of that one, no.
There you go. And it'll be the same. Just because you can design a multitude of different varieties of currencies doesn't mean that all of them will prove to be relevant to everybody. Of course not. Some of them will be only relevant to a small subset of our world. Some of them may be utterly irrelevant. You can design something which is pure nonsense, and you can put it on the system, and in fact, even people could try it for a while and find that it was nonsense, so they could look at it and say that's nonsense. But neither prevents it from being there and having that possibility for people who want to do nonsense. Yeah, they can.
Well, and I think I've been involved with a time bank here in Portland too, off and on, and a lot of the people who are involved with that, that's an entirely different set of rules than say like Ithaca Hours or something like that. But the people who are involved with that, I don't think they're really thinking about it, in terms of any kind of addressing monetary troubles. They're just kind of looking at it for getting to know their neighbors and building community and that kind of thing. And I think that's a really important entry point to this idea of developing exchange systems. So, that could be one entry point. Another entry point could be, somebody looking for, a sort of mutual credit barter network, and saying, well, okay, this is really interesting, but wow, look at this. I guess here's also tools for helping getting to know my neighbors. You know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of different tools and a lot of different possibilities with exchange systems, and I think the more that those can kind of coexist with each other, the better. So.
Well, indeed. In fact, this morning, one of my neighbors dropped by after his breakfast with one of these business networking clubs. Every week they meet for breakfast, and they just pass the day, talk a few things, swap contacts, and they refer. They refer potential leads to each other, clients to each other. They work with each other. Now, there's a little membership group. There might be 20 of them, might be 50, I don't know. But it would be very, very simple for them to register on Open Money and open their own little networks. Many of them, not just singular. They could have, amongst that 50 people, they could have a dozen different sub-networks operating to their value. But that's for them to discover. That's for them to find out. But I'm sure we're going to see a lot of groups that hadn't thought in terms of community currency. They may have thought in terms of networking or neighborliness. They may be thinking in terms of project management. We're putting on the horticultural show at the end of the month, or a theater project or something. Let's organize. How do we organize? Well, let's run some scores, some accounts. Who's putting in time? Who's putting in energy? Just run your own currency system to keep track of all that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the history of community currencies has been driven by what I call needs and ideology. Needs are, we've got to fix the church roof, or the school's in trouble, we need some help, or we have no local agriculture, we need to build a community-supported agricultural system. That's great. Need-orientated. Use a money that can help, by all means. But it means that people have come to the project from that focus, and they often don't see that this tool can do 1,000 other things. So the ideology, the development of systems has often been constrained by those narrow visions, and indeed ideological ones. The idea that that everything should be at equal. There should be no comparable earning rates. That is, the doctor and the babysitter should be earning the same rate. Well, that's an ideological position, perfectly legitimate, but it shouldn't, I think, restrict the opportunity for people to live by other patterns as well.
No, of course not.
Both, in fact. Yeah.
And I mean, and there's room in, I think, all of our lives. We kind of, I think, ideally live kind of a diverse existence. And at least that's. I think there's different places for different arrangements within our lives, and lending the neighbor the lawnmower kind of exists in a different space from going to the supermarket. And that may live in a different space from participating in a CSA, because the supermarket's kind of more anonymous, and there's kind of a more commerce kind of relationship happening there. Whereas going and volunteering on a farm and getting a share of the produce, that's a totally different relationship, and I think there's different. That needs to be honored in some way. Those different relationships need to be honored. And
yes, yeah. If we don't, there's that old line that what you measure matters, which in its converse is if you're not measuring something or detecting it or observing it, if you have no track on the amount of gas you're using in your car, for instance, then you have no idea. It doesn't matter to you, obviously, because you're not tracking it. You're not taking account. That has an effect on you, depletes your economy, your all sorts of things, perhaps. But until we start checking the gas gauge, counting how many miles we're getting to the gallon, how many dollars that's costing us. Until we're measuring something, we've got no account of it. And then it tends to just drift out of our awareness, and certainly it's not easily analyzed, and therefore not easily responded to. So if you look at any of these things, like the lawnmowers or the community-supported agriculture or carbon counting, our ability to just to take track is absolutely critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have a little website called openmoney.editme.com, where we have one page on that site where we invite people to count what they think is important. It's not about what we think is important. It's what do you count? What counts for you? What matters in your world? It could be the daily temperature. It could be how high is the corn in your backyard or something. It could be anything that matters to you to track and count. Well, that's your affair. Now, I'm not that interested in the height of corn in your backyard, and maybe your neighbor isn't either, but there's plenty of networks where any quality of feedback and information will enhance the ability of that network to be live and vital.
Well, a really interesting historical example of this is some of the earliest examples of writing. When, I guess, we think of writing maybe, in its highest form, poetry, literature, all that kind of stuff. But, writing in a very basic way was invented to just keep track of accounts. Receipts were among the very first examples of writing. So, and, I mean, look at how that, an invention that's, very early on was applied to basically an economic patterning. Look at how that's affected society. So I kind of see it as a similar sort of thing, where. Well,
you're right up to the speed with our greatest thinkers on the subject. Eric Harris Braun has been musing on this precise issue of language, literacy, the shift from writing as an elite activity that was initially ideographic. If you take the Chinese character set, there were something like 30,000 ideographs that people were supposed to be able to recognize and replicate if they were going to be part of the writing class. Well, of course, that made it an elitist occupation. And therein lies power. Well, similarly with money, as you described, the item of account in the early tally systems, well, money has been an exclusive, privileged, ideographic package for the last 10,000 years. And liberalizing the literacy of money, bringing people to a realization that they can read and they can write and they can read and write their own money too. That's a profound transition in the body politic, in the way that our culture works.
Absolutely. Well, you'll get no argument here.
Well, that's good. We don't want arguments.
Well, I guess
not even that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go for it. Let's make this to and fro on your issues.
Well, I have a couple questions. I guess one of them is kind of on a real basic level. I'm interested to know why. I guess the word money itself seems to have comes with a lot of strings attached, so to speak. So I'm kind of interested to hear some of your reasoning behind the name of the project. Like, why did you call it Open Money as opposed to Open Exchange or something like that?
Well, I think it's a bit like that Take Back the Night issue. Remember, a lot of people in the cities feeling inhibited by, street violence, fear of crime, and taking ownership of the space by going into the space, living the space, having it be the way you want it to be. Now, I look at the core quality of money as a very simple koan. It's It's the stuff that doesn't really exist that you're willing to take for something that does, so that maybe later you can get something that does exist for the stuff that doesn't really exist. All right. Now, go back a few hundred years. Of course, money was strongly tied to substantial value, like coinage or gold, precious metal. But progressively, it has become dematerialized to just the abstraction of measure. Now, to leave all that measurement in the hands of the banks is a bit strange. And I think if we were to say what we're doing isn't really money, it's something else, we belittle ourselves. We don't stand on our own feet. We don't take the language. In the beginning was the Word. Remember that line? I read it somewhere. And we have to own the words. We have to assert that the words mean what they're capable of meaning, not just what they're capable of being manipulated to mean.
Yeah.
Now, I just feel it's a stronger position, and I think that in terms of the general taxonomy of money, the whole structure of what is money, money is much, much more than this temporary aberration that our society has indulged in for the last 300 or 400 years, essentially since the creation of fractional reserve banking and the centralization of that process in a limited number of power elites. Money has become what they say it is. It's their money. Now, this is our money.
Yeah,
but it's money every bit as much, and in fact, in many ways, better than anything that the fiat monetary creation system has foisted on us.
Smacked of a somewhat economic version of the Protestant Reformation.
Yes, here I stand, I can no other. How many feces do we got to put up there? Well, I'll do something about it.
But yeah, no, I understand that. I think that's a very valid point, and I mean, it's interesting though, because I've talked to a lot of economists and complementary currency folks and community currency folks and all the rest of it, and everybody seems to have a different. Even the Fed itself isn't really sure. You ask them what money is, and there's M0, M1, M2.
Yeah.
Nobody's really very sure what if to define that, what that actually means, and especially as distinct from something like currency. I mean, I got so many different takes on what the distinction between money and currency is. All at the pretty high levels of academia. So I guess I can say that it doesn't seem as though there's a standardized definition for any of these things. That it's kind of to me that does seem that makes it ripe for a little bit of reclamation. Hopefully.
Well, I see it a lot like the Wizard of Oz. Don't look behind the curtain. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. The smoke and mirrors of the feds and so on. I don't know if you caught that thing that Alan Greenspan did on one of the talk shows a few months ago when he was just retiring and publicizing his book, for which he's getting an enormous amount of money. But in this interview, he said that basically he'd started in this business 40 years ago or something, and he'd studied it carefully for 40 years. He now knew no more than he did when he began. He couldn't predict a damn thing. If he knew whether people were basically happy or people were basically sad, encouraged or pessimistic, then he'd have everything he needs to know, and it would work far better than any fractional points in the prime rate. He'd know what to do if he knew what people were feeling and thinking. So
that's really
here you have the high priest, and how high is the high priest? I mean, Alan Greenspan has been raised to a sainthood over the last 20 years, and for no good reason that I can think of, but he has. And there he is, gleefully, blithely, admitting and confessing that he knows nothing about his own subject. And he's right. I appreciate his honesty. I just wish he'd get out of the way and be useful.
Yeah.
So there's a lack of definition, and that's one of the reasons why I'm looking to redefine. I'm looking to bring back a proper appreciation of what money is, and from that appreciation, what we can do with it.
Another thing I think that's really, and it may be an important tagline to put on Open Money, is talking about, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, autopoiesis or autopoiesis.
Poiesis or poiesis or something. Hell of a word to pronounce, yeah. The self-learning organism.
Yeah,
yes.
I think there's been a lot of work done in kind of the living systems world that talks about, self-organization, self-creation, that kind of thing, spontaneous self-realization of patterns. And, I think there's a lot of mathematics that also goes along with that. And it seems like the Open Money Network provides the space for society to kind of spontaneously self-organize the trading patterns that are going to suit its needs. And I think that's a really important selling point.
It's so good, Alan. You should make sure you can write it down later. That one's a keeper. That's a little soundbite. Because it is the truth of the matter. You got it down in flat and clear. That's the story.
Yeah.
Self-learning society. Society is emerging from what I call an infantile state, perhaps an adolescent state. Let's be a little bit more polite. The gunslinger period of Western civilization.
Right.
The frontier or be damned stuff. Oil, it's free, it costs us nothing. Yippee, let's go. All that stuff. Well, this is like the 14-year-old who's just coming into his hormones and doesn't know what he's doing and is somewhat insecure and uncertain and scrambling. Well, then something starts happening and people start getting a better grasp of the world around them. They begin to pick up on the social relationships. They grow as people, as personalities, as components of a culture. Now, collective intelligence, the whole concept that our society is more than our individualness, that a beehive, a colony of bees, is more than a bunch of bees in one place. There is something of their commonality that produces more than just the numeric addition of their parts. Well, what is it that our society creates that cannot be ultimately brought down to what do? I bake bread, you make films, this person cuts hair, that guy scraps cars, who knows what. But these are all the events, and by that pattern of events, our society moves forwards in the real world, or backwards, depending on how you look at it. Well, it's been unconscious because it's been driven entirely by this scramble for the commodity currency, the get-rich-quick, the fear of being left out of the gravy train. If you don't own a house by the time you're 30, I think you're 29, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you don't own, yeah. Well, Margaret Thatcher said famously during her period as Prime Minister of Britain that anybody who found themselves on a public bus at the age of 30 was a failure.
Wow.
Yes. Margaret Thatcher was a wonderful piece of news. What the British answer to Ronald Reagan. Oh my God.
Wow. Yeah. But I mean, I think you're absolutely right to point towards, this kind of patterning, and it seems as though the patterning of our society has been determined for, quite some time now by this one substance that we have to get other things, and of course the irony of it is it's not even a substance.
Yes.
and one of the, in terms of, I think this has profound implications in terms of freedom, but spontaneously developing the patterns that are going to suit society best. I mean, I think that's one of at the core of what makes this a profound notion. And I mean, it puts it in kind of a different category than, currency design minutia. I mean, we can talk about who issues the money and, how is it redeemed and all that. And that's, one whole set of discussion, which is very important. But this is kind of on a whole other level of conception, on a very meta level. And
yeah, I look at it a bit like you can have a dance, or you can have a dance hall. In a way, we've created a dance hall. Now everybody can come and dance. They can do their own thing.
Yeah.
Now,
let me ask you this: what are the entry points you see for people? I mean, how do you see people plugging into this thing? Because you have to, in order for people to dance at the dance hall, you have to have people, are aware of the dance hall and then bother to show up at the dance hall once they are aware of it. So, I guess that's kind of of interest to me. Sort of what's your take on those two parts of it?
Wide open again. I used to think I had good ideas about how people would relate to this, what people would be interested, how to bring them in. And sometimes they've proved reasonably accurate, sometimes completely inaccurate. What I have learned is let people do what they do and see where they come in. Give them a variety of options, but don't restrict them. Because some people will be very happy playing in the shallow end of the pool, skiing on the bunny slopes, taking life really easy. Other people want to hit the Black Diamond run, take me to the top of the hill. Now, the person who wants to go to the Black Diamond isn't going to be happy on the bunny slopes, and vice versa. So you provide all the ranges. Now, that's the sweet part about open money, is you're not trying to make one size fit all. You're providing perhaps 20 different variants in even at the outset. Time banks, business to business, ecological systems with a tithing in it to, revert some funding to requirements, investment networks, community agriculture, youth networks, seniors networks, cultural groups, the Vietnamese of your neighborhood or network, or whatever. There's all these options. And I think making it clear to people that they don't have to join this one. They can access whichever ones they appeal to. People are not joiners, We think of our society as a collection of things that are all collaborative businesses, organizations, whatever. But you ask people whether they want to join this club or that club, and generally speaking, the reaction is, "Oh, I don't like clubs. No. I might join the credit union, but it's just another bank. I don't want to be coming to meetings and being friendly with these people. I just want to use the credit union." So if we start a single currency, it's very much like creating a Boy Scout troop. Well, a lot of boys want to join the Boy Scout troop. A lot don't. And a lot of the girls got nothing to do with it. So as soon as you've defined a particular form, it tends to attract a smallish subset of the population and reject or repulse others. People just don't want to play. So I'm very keen on the idea that multiplicity is a value of immense importance. If we don't offer people the multiple, it's like giving them a box of paints for their Christmas, and all the paints are the same color, blue or green.
Yeah,
but it's all one color. Can't play. No, there's no fun in that. So multiples is the key. Now, I also think that it's very important to build some of those around mainstream, functional, here's the money moving. The bread in the supermarket, the beer in the corner store.
Yes. true Adam Smith terms.
Yes, let's get down to the nuts and bolts, the realities of existence. And within that sphere, to look at the financial considerations for making the development and propagation of these systems financially supported. Draw revenue from the project in such a way that you don't inhibit the project. And I've got to be really careful here when I say draw revenue from the project. Make damn sure you don't take it out to the main artery. There's a lot of systems that we've seen who just thought, oh, great, we'll pay for ourselves by a 5% levy, or the administration budget, of course, can go negative in the system, and so on. And these are not good models. They're self-destructive. What you learn from them is death in various ways, or demise. So a financial model is probably imperative at some stage in the evolution. It doesn't have to be the first thing, but at some stage or other, you've got to say, okay, we want to get this plane off the runway. That means a bit of takeoff speed. That means throw some energy at it. And so there's got to be some funding. There's got to be a way for people to put in a solid day's work to finance the equipment. If you want smart cards or swipe systems, or even if you want print paper, not that I recommend that. It's a very dangerous business, printing paper. Expensive, limiting, distracting, rather stupid.
Well,
there are some advantages in terms of identification, image, the PR component, which are good, but you've got to be real careful that they don't get in the way. So whatever it is you're going to do, it's probably going to cost something in terms of time and energy, resources, telephone bills, photocopying, who knows what. You need to have a resource. So one core component is that which makes money, which is a simple business model for returning sufficient revenue to the development group that it works.
Well, I'll tell you something that I think speaks to what you're saying. And, so we're organizing this basically community exchange program here in Portland right now. And, we've got kind of a formation committee and looking at, writing our mission statements and, legal structures and all that kind of thing. And part of that was on our website, we offered, just among the kind of core 20 people or so that have been showing up to these meetings, a way just kind of on their own for people to exchange goods and services. So, hey, I can do babysitting, I can do this, maybe I need this. And spontaneously, the most amazing thing, I didn't even know this was happening until one meeting and people started talking about it, but spontaneously, among this group of 20 people started supporting each other, doing trades back and forth. And, I think if I'm hearing what you're saying, I guess it sounds like, using some of these tools to kind of get momentum so that the bigger ones can, say the bioregional level currencies can kind of really get off the ground by using some of these other tools to kind of gain momentum. And I think that's a really important part of it. Because
the compost factor. Yeah, it's great. And that is the magic of this process, the unanticipated benefits. And there will be odd detriments that come up with it as well. I expect. I'm not going to say everything is perfect, but I will say that the variety will reveal its own opportunities. The old analogy of you build a university and you may decide where the students should walk and build pathways around the green spaces, but the students will walk where the students walk. So the simplest way to build your architecture, your map of your campus, is to put the campus there, watch where the students go, and then that's where the path is going to be. So it's a perfect example. And if you get any group of people coordinating, working together, they will emerge things. And that's really what we're looking for in Mexico, which, as you recall, I'm ardent that you should get yourself, your camera, and your mind down to Mexico. I think it'll have profound value for your work in Portland. simply. And in fact, maybe you should go back to your committee and say, look, we need to do some research here. There's an educational process. One of us, two of us come down, spend a few days in Mexico, mix in with the generative component, the genesis of the open money initiatives, and see what it produces for you. I'm sure it will surprise you.
Yeah, well, it's a very fascinating initiative, and I'm honored to help out in any way I can. So there it is.
Well, we are. We're honored that you're honored. We're all honored. Let's all be honored.
Admiration Society here.
Well, that's all that the gift acknowledgement cycle of a mutual credit is. Gee, that was a nice job you did, Alan. I'd have paid you money if I had it. The hard stuff I don't. I just got the soft. I think Alan's worth 1,000. Yeah, it's just acknowledging the gift. So yeah, mutual appreciation is definitely it. Now, I'm seeing from my switchboard that we're approaching the end of this call, and so I'm going to taper it off today, but propose that we return to this discussion whenever it's convenient on other mornings, and put in some more time, because you lead a good discussion there, Alan, and it's good to have you in the conversation.
Yeah, well, it's great to chat. So it's that's if you talked earlier about what I want to count. I count good conversations.
Yeah.
That's
well, great. Let's do some more of those. And in the meantime, I'll just wind up in the last few seconds by thanking Alan Rosenblith from Portland, themoneyfix.org, Shades of Grey Media. That's Alan, and Alan's our man with a camera these days, and we wish to see his efforts in Portland prosper.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, Alan. Catch you later.
All right.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
And now, is Ernie there? Ernie, do you hear? No, Ernie isn't there. So I'm just going to say, Ernie, thanks for listening. I know you were there. And thanks to all. Let's wind it for Open Money on Blogspot on January the 31st, the first month of the first year of Open Money. Good day.